show that the following figure is a parallelogram. Okay, so we have a couple of ways of showing that. This is technically a proof, but it's an algebraic proof. So we have technically three ways of showing that a figure is a parallelogram. One way is to show that opposite sides are congruent. For that, we use the distance formula. We can show that opposite sides are parallel. That's the second method. And for that method, we use the slope, and we show that the opposite slopes are the same. And the last method, remember, is a combination of the two. We pick two sides, and we show that both those sides are congruent and parallel. So I'm going to do the first two methods. We won't worry about the third one. Just imagine picking one part of each one of the methods and putting it together. So let's do the first method showing that opposite sides are congruent. Okay, so using the distance formula, so remember the distance formula, let me write it over here. Square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Okay, so we just plug in the information. So let's take side MP and NO. Okay, MP first. So again, remember, it doesn't matter what you call x1 and y1, you just want to stay consistent. So square root of, so let's call P the x2. So 3 minus negative 5 squared plus, okay, 7 minus negative 1 squared. Okay, so let's work it out. So we have square root of 8 squared plus another 8 squared. Okay, so square root of 64 plus 64, so square root of 128. And now pull out your calculator and let's find the square root of 128. Okay, so that square root is equal to 11.31. Okay, so that's the first side. The second side, NO. So again, we plug stuff into the square root. So we have 3 minus negative 5 squared plus 3 minus negative 5 squared. Okay, again, that gives us 8 squared plus 8 squared, square root of 128, and 11.31. Okay, so we have shown that those two sides are congruent. Okay, so let's take a look at the other two sides. So we have side MN. Okay, for that we technically don't need to use the distance formula. We have a vertical line. So let's just check out the change in y. So the higher of the 2 point is negative 1, and the lower one is negative 5. So let's find the change in those 2 points. So let's do negative 1 minus negative 5. Okay, so that's the same as negative 1 plus 5, so that's equal 4. So the length of that piece, let's change colors here real quick. So we just looked at this piece right here, and just the distance from here to here, and that's 4. Okay, so let's take a look at the next piece. So we have P and Q right there. switch the color here. So we're trying to find this distance. So P and O. So again, we look at the change in the y's. So we have 7 minus 3. So we subtract the smaller from the bigger one. And again, that gives us 4. So you can see that we have shown that opposite sides are congruent. So we want to make a statement about that, though. We don't want to just leave it as calculations, because somebody looking at this might have no clue what we're saying. So we want to make a final statement. So we can say that not MN, yes, let's go with MN, is congruent to PO, and MP is congruent to NO. So therefore, remember these 3 dots are therefore this quadrilateral, let's see, the name is MNOP. Is a parallelogram. Okay, so that's our first method, how we can show that this parallelogram is, this figure is a parallelogram. The second method was to show that the opposite sides are parallel. So let's do that. Okay, I copied this over again so we can have a clean start here. So now let's show that opposite sides are parallel. So let's start with the ones that are at an angle. So MP and NO. So remember, slope is rise over run, or we can change, you can say the change in y over the change in x. So change in y, 7 minus -1 over change in x, 3 minus -5. Okay, so let's simplify this. So that gives us 8 over 8, which is equal to 1. So our slope of MP is equal to 1. We want to check if that's the same as the slope of NO. Okay, so again, let's do change in y over change in x. So let me just write the formula over here for those of you who don't remember. Okay, so let's see, we have 3 minus -5 over 3 minus -5. Again, 8 over 8 equals 1. Now, in this case, when we look at the other two slopes, we see that they're vertical lines, and that gets a little tricky with slopes because technically a vertical line does not have a slope. The slope is undefined. But because that's the case with both of them, that means the slopes are the same. So slope of MN, we'll just say that this vertical line, and then slope of PO, also vertical, so they're the same. So now we have shown that the opposite sides are parallel. So let's write that. Let's write a concluding statement. So we can say that MP is parallel to NO, and MN is parallel to PO. Therefore, MNOP is a parallelogram. And again, we don't need to write out that word. We can just use the little symbol for parallelogram, and that's fine. So, and as I mentioned before, if we want to do the third method, you just pick one set of sides, do the distance formula and the slope on that set of sides, and then make a concluding statement for that. So that would be your third way of doing it.